eQuilter.com. eQuilter.com.
Well, as promised, Luana Rubin is back with us this season, and you recently went to France and Italy.
Yes.
And we have some beautiful fabrics here in the middle of the table. And tell me a little bit about what we're looking at.
Well, we're looking at some select pieces from two collections, La Scala and Tuscan Wildflower, the latter which is designed by Peggy Toole. And they are inspired by the opera, by the Tuscan wildflowers here, obviously, and a lot of the embellishments and gold metallics that you see in the opera house.
So very much influenced by the architecture that is in Italy.
Yes, and the tapestries as well, and the wall coverings, and just the embellishment that's everywhere you look.
I am really drawn to this color scheme here. I love that. And this actually looks like it has a bit of a French influence to it.
Yes.
I've noticed that the French fabrics tend to have lots of yellow and blue.
Yes, I think yellow and blue is a very typical Provence type of color scheme. And of course the red would be more Italian. In fact, I recently was in the Paris Opera House, which is just loads of red velvet and red tapestry. So really both France and Italy have that red type of color scheme. This I think is a more contemporary color scheme, and this as well. Perhaps this is a little more traditional country Italian, you might say.
And what are these three fabrics? Are these wall coverings or?
Those are embossed velvets, and those are by Judith Montano Baker.
Okay.
And they really remind me of the wall coverings in Napoleon III's apartments in the Louvre. They've preserved his apartments just as they were, and this is exactly what you see.
Now, I want your job because as a color expert, it sounds like you really are out and on the beat around the world to really find out what the trends are and where we get our inspiration for these fabrics.
Yeah, it's a dream job, and I also work for the color marketing group. And so that's a lot of my impetus.
You have to do a lot of research for that, I'm sure.
That's right.
Wow. Well, let's take a look at the fabrics that are over here. Tell us what we're looking at over in this section of the table.
Well, these are a few more pieces from my stash, my very large stash that I've collected over the years, but the first three are contemporary pieces that, again, are inspired by traditional, historic French and Italian fabrics and colors. The next piece here is an embroidered piece that I think really illustrates the colors of Italy. And it wasn't made in Italy, but I bought it in Italy.
Well, it seems that to me that in Italy there's a lot of warm tones. Like I noticed a lot of the fabrics that I like from Italy. They're all in these kind of warm tones. So I understand why they would be attracted to something like this.
And you know why? When you go there, you see all of these colors in the houses and in the buildings. And that's because the original paint and stucco was made from the pigments of the earth in Italy.
A very Tuscan influence.
Absolutely.
So, and this panel here?
That's just an example of some French flourishes, you know, the type of things that you would see when you go to Versailles, for instance. And then this panel here, this is one of my favorite things to do when I travel. I collect tea towels. You go into the tourist traps and you buy the tea towels.
I tend to walk right on by, but this is a really good idea to do this.
Yeah, and I have probably about 20 of them, and someday I'm going to make a giant, runway out of all my tea towels.
Oh, that's funny. Well, you could actually combine them probably with some of the fabrics that have been inspired.
Definitely.
So let's take a look over at this portion of the table. What are we looking at here?
Well, these are all shawls and scarves that I collected while I was traveling in Italy in this case. And this is just a silk piece, again, out of my stash that I thought went with these. These are ombre silk scarves. This is a jacquard, and this is an embroidered piece. And again, I bring these back just for color inspiration because you just don't see anything like this in this country.
Well, it's beautiful. So tell me how you would combine some of these fabrics, because they, just as quilters, they're very, very ornate. But if I wanted to make them work in a quilt, any tips?
Yes, absolutely. Well, let's say, for instance, you were going to pick up this color combination and maybe mix this in too. Find the color that runs through all three of them. Obviously, in this case, it would be kind of this pinkish burgundy, winey red color, and use that in the contrasting and the sashing and so on. I would pick up the dark colors for perhaps the binding and some of the contrast points.
But probably something with with a calming pattern to it.
Absolutely.
So to showcase these fabrics.
Even a solid with a texture, for instance, a sateen would be very nice.
Okay.
And then if you wanted to pop it a little bit more at the end, you could do some gold embroidery on top that would mimic the gold metallic.
Oh, that would be beautiful. You could actually, echo some of with some free motion work.
Excellent. Yeah, that would be
very nice.
You could digitize this, in fact.
Oh, that's a good idea.
You could extend the gold metallic into the border.
Well, Luana, thank you so much for coming.
Yes.
I sure hope you enjoyed traveling the world with us today, and I will see you next time on Quilting Arts.